Hey, what's going on everyone? Welcome back to the X-Force Global channel. XRP is still up a whopping 65% off of its lows, with no real signs of stopping on the macro. Now, we are 1 inch away from breaking this trend line of this larger possible triangle that we have been observing for quite some time. Will we break it or get rejected for the 4th time? That is something we'll discuss in this video. Now, first, we need to understand what kind of pattern the XRP is in for those that are new to the channel. Now, we have been observing or discussing the possibility of a larger triangle being built for quite some time due to the larger 7 to 8 year accumulation that we have been creating for XRP. Now, this accumulation alone is something that I am most sure that the general markets are seeing, even if they aren't versed in the Elliott Wave Theory, but we as Elliott Wave analysts use these patterns to identify the next possible step in the direction of the primary trend. So that means that the triangle pattern is actually one of the many corrective pattern types and is actually used very widely, and it's created in a series of 3-wave patterns known as zigzags as the absolute basis of creating the triangle. This is denoted as 3-wave patterns, and they are known as ABCs or sometimes WXYs as we have here, that can also be fitted into the triangle once. So a triangle is characterized as by 5 larger subwaves known as the ABCDE, and currently we have each of those subwaves counted as those 3-wave ABCs I just mentioned. Now, with the triangle, you have to be very careful because there are validations and invalidations to the actual pattern itself. But to put it very simply, without going too much into the details of the rules, we currently have all of those subwaves created, or assumed at least created, that is now at peak validation that also portrays the contracting look that we need for the triangle. So the most important rule for the triangle is that with every preceding wave going forward, you need to make sure that it doesn't overlap with the previous subsequent waves of this pattern. So now that we have all of the subwaves created or assumed created, our subwave E in the orange, that is the last part of the triangle, cannot overlap with the previous subwave C in the orange as well. Overlapping into that will be a complete invalidation of the triangle, and rightfully so, because that would ruin the overall pattern look. So the triangles are one of the few important patterns that should pertain to what is known as having the right look, meaning that the triangle should more or less keep the contracting characteristic of the triangle as you reach the apex of the triangle or the ending of the triangle, simply put. So to validate this triangle, even with higher probability, we need to break above this green line here that I have put it here. This validation is merely to increase the probability of the triangle. Now, we really want to not be breaking not only the subwave D, but more importantly, the first step would be to break above the trend line known as the BD trend line, as you can see that is created by this wave B and this wave D. This would give our first highly confidence booster to the continuation to the breakout of the upside. So if we're talking about potential targets, again, anything for this current move that we're looking for or expecting is at least to breaking this previous subwave 3. Since this is a corrective pattern, we're looking for a continuation after a breakout of a wave 4. So if that's the case, we're now looking for a possible wave 5 to complete this overall pattern of the impulsive move. What we're looking for is now the possible measurement based on what's known as the post-triangle thrust measurement that uses the widest part of the triangle. Then you would have a possible conservative target of a possible $10 per XRP or Ripple. So that is my current conservative targets. And again, that 5th wave is created because we have the possibility of a 4th wave being completed now. Then that 5th wave is what we're going to be looking for. So that's the overall macro structure, ladies and gentlemen. That is what we're looking for. But we do have one other possibility of a corrective pattern that's not being created. Rather, we're working in what's known as a 1-2 nested structure. Now, this nested 1-2 structure, again, we discussed this in my previous XRP videos. If you're interested in watching those, please do watch that. But the very gist of it is that we're creating a larger extension cycle wave 3 that's seen as the Roman numeral 1-2. You're now working in the Roman numeral wave 3. Again, these are just very basic targets. These are not the actual targets itself, because we need to be working on what's known as the internal 1-2 structures before we can even talk about the possibility of a wave 3 target. Now, these wave 3 targets are highly ambitious this, because of the fact that we don't have enough information, rather this accumulative phase should be seen as a triangle and a possible breakout pattern rather than a larger nested structure that could be part of a beginning structure. But nevertheless, the count does still exist, meaning that we're looking for a wave 3 to the upside that would give us way more ambitious targets of possibly $50 to $100 per XRP. But that is too ambitious in my opinion. But the idea of this idea is that it is very interesting to observe because of the fundamentals and observations that's created by these wave counts, because XRP is one of the very few interesting ones that have this larger possible expanding leading diagonal variation where we have two of them possibly that's going into each subsequent wave ones. So that is why I like to keep this idea, because of the observation that was created, and with all of the SEC case being tied into the wave counts, the observations have been created with the Elliott Wave Theory. So with that being said, overall, this wave 3 to the upside in the intermediate wave 3 in orange is still going to be relatively the similar target of what we're expecting for that triangle breakout. So we would still expect a possible profit taking zone around the $8 to $10 no matter what, even if you are on this current possible count of the more ambitious idea. So if that's the case, we should stick to the more relatively rational idea where this wave 5 is going to be coming to a conclusion that we're also expecting for a lot of other coins, but still that conservative target, ladies and gentlemen, is around 10 to 20x. So if that's the case, this triangle idea, now that it has a really relatively good look with a 7 to 8 year accumulation, this is what we're going to be looking for. So how do we get there? How do we break this possible trend line? Well, we have to zoom in now, right? So if we zoom in and we see what kind of possible counts are possibly created, these lower time frame counts are still going to be pertained to both that 1-2-1-2 idea and also the triangle idea, because we're looking as a possible 1-2 correction that's going to be completing as 3-wave move, or the possible subwave E that also has to be created as a possible 3-wave move. So what we have here is a possible WXY or a possible ABC with a relatively equality look for waves A to the C. This idea is going to be my primary in terms of how we can count the shorter time frames. Overall, because we did have a pretty nice conclusion for a 5-wave move for this wave C that is also tied into even the shorter time frames, even more micro time frames, that fits into all of the counts going forward. So if we zoom in even further, how can we get into more optimal entries if you're not in XRP? Well, first of all, I think that we do have a pretty clear contender of having 5 waves up, meaning that we're going to do a little bit of a sideways range, possibly creating this ABC to the downside. Or now that we're actually coming up, this actually might be turning into some kind of flat idea where we're not going to be even coming down to retest any major Fibonacci levels of the 618 or 786 for a possible 1-2 after we have completed this wave 5. Again, we need to create 5 waves up to really determine if this is going to be the beginning of a trend, and that is what we got over the past few weeks. So this 5-wave move up is very, very good. It's the first beginning step, but again, as with any corrective moves, we need to have the reaction wave that's going to be help creating the larger wave 3 to the upside for this intermediate wave. So if that's the case, it seems like, I guess, Bitcoin, or depending on Bitcoin's current price action, this could be turning into that ABC that we have also been expecting in our previous Bitcoin video. But again, if this XRP is going to still stay resilient in this market, this can also be turning into a flat. And who knows, maybe this 1-2 has already completed and we're still working for that. Otherwise, we may be still working in a possible wave 4 that is now being completed as either some kind of flat idea that's also being created, and we go a little bit higher to create that wave 1, and then we come down for wave 2, which is also a possibility, and then all we had to do is extend this wave 3 a little bit higher. Otherwise, right now I do see a possible trend completion where wave 4 has completed and wave 5 is also completed, and we're now working for some kind of sideways structure for wave 2 or a deeper wave B that's going to be creating now the wave C. That should give us that final completion for that intermediate wave 2. Again, if you zoom out, this all fits into the larger time frames because that is what we're looking for of the larger macro structure. We're now looking for the larger intermediate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the upside to start creating that first wave 1 of the primary degree, as we have it for the larger triangle possibility breakout and even this 1-2-1-2 idea that we're looking for that extended wave 3 in the intermediate degree on the macro. So if we zoom out, again, this is going to be that very important trendline breakout like I mentioned. So expectation is that small rejection that we had, that 5-way move up we just had. We're now seeing that little bit of rejection happening within that trend line. But again, I do expect this trend line to be broken and then to the upside, and then eventually retesting this very important subwave D that I mentioned, and that'll help even validate the triangle even more. That'll give us that possibility of the continuation to the upside. So step by step, this is how we're going to be seeing the possible targets. The larger macro targets remain the same. Again, this is just a blimp within the galaxy. We're not seeing too much movement on the shorter time frames. All we're looking for is the larger picture. And right now, those that have been anticipating the larger breakout, this is possibly the only time that we're going to see XRP finally breaking out of its larger 7 to 8 year accumulation. So hopefully that was helpful, ladies and gentlemen. I will do another Bitcoin update. My previous Bitcoin update is still going fantastic. We were expecting a possible correction. Now we're going to be following up on the Bitcoin possibilities, on the scenarios. So please stay tuned for that, and also more altcoin videos. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel and also like the video if you would like to see more videos. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.